Top of the morning folks, today from the Reddit Rainforest. What's the ballsiest thing you have ever seen someone do? I watched a guy steal a girl's iPod and, as he ran off, she threw her backpack like you do a hammer toss and nailed him in the back of the head. She casually caught up to him, picked up her backpack and iPod, and returned to where she was standing. I work at a photo studio inside of a Walmart, and it turns out that Monday, while no one was manning the studio, someone took 7 movies, a portable DVD player, a desk chair and a leather stool from inside Walmart and brought them into the studio where they sat and watched movies all day. The balls that the person must have had to walk all throughout the store to assemble the items and then set up their broke ass cinema to watch those movies is astounding. Here's what happened. We were spearfishing, and my uncle had just speared a large hogfish, but he did not have enough breath to finish what he was doing. So, there's a gutshot fish flopping around on the seabed. Usually my uncle gets a clean headshot, waiting for someone to go and pick it up. He goes down, grabs the end of the spear, and starts coming up. Well, there was a reef nearby, and this dark shape flowed from underneath it, quick as a flash, and attached itself to the fish on the end of the spear. Side note, most types of sharks have to swim through the water to keep breathing. Nurse sharks do not. My uncle feels a tug on the spear, turns around, and is confronted with a 6-foot shark attached to the end of his spear. At this point, I assume most rational people would A. Be scared out of their minds and drop the spear, B. Think shark, and drop the spear. Not my uncle. He proceeds to get a better grip on the spear, puts his foot on the shark's head and starts yanking away. Turns out the gripping power of a shark's mouth is significant, and it was not letting go either. After several seconds of underwater tug of war, they rip the fish in half, and the shark jets off as fast as it can. After we were back in the boat, I asked my uncle, why did not you just let it have the fish? He said, I paid $20 for that spear, and I'll be damned if I'm going to give it up to a shark. To sum it up, I saw a man fight a shark for a spear. At our residential university meeting, they were handing out award for the highest achievers of that semester. This guy got his name called, and without missing a beat stood up and walked up to get his award while sporting a massive erection. He even shook the dean's hand and strode back, not giving a duck. I like to imagine that he knew his name was coming, knew what his body was doing, and just though duck it. I do not give a malarkey what these people think. I'm a goddamn genius, and if I want to pop a woody, then everyone else here can just deal. We were doing a training exercise in the Mojave Desert. My team walks away from our Humvee to set some malarkey up. We leave one guy with a Humvee. Name was Jake. Get back to the Humvee to find that one of our water jugs leaked everywhere in the back. Turns out bees are attracted to water. WTF. So a few hundred of them protested our occupation there by holding their own Occupy Humvee movement. I find Jake sitting in the back smoking a cigar, right in the middle of the swarm. I ask, from a distance, does not it bother you at all that you're completely duck-eyed surrounded by bees? He says, no, puff cigar, I speak their language. And that was how I discovered that Jake was a badass. I came out of a movie theater in Houston and saw some elderly woman standing defiantly between some cruel teenage boys and a young man with Down syndrome. They pushed the elderly woman down and began beating and kicking the guy. I called the police, who arrived in about 45 seconds. I provided first aid to the woman and the guy. The woman was 77 years old and did not know the guy who she was standing up for. She suffered a broken wrist and tibia/fibula when she was thrown to the ground. When I was splinting her leg, she said, I just had to help that poor man. Those thugs made me so angry. This lady had serious stones. I know big scary looking guys who would have been afraid to intervene in this situation. On the subway in Toronto, Muslim family chilling, mother with a burqa on. Drunk black guy hops on the subway and starts yelling at them. Terrorists etc etc. 60-year-old Jewish guy, had a kippah on, looks me dead in the eyes as the stop approaches and nods. Doors open. He has his hand up. Sound the doors closing, hand down, go time. We tossed the ducker onto the platform and the train took off. Train cheered for us, and the father of the family hugged me and the Jewish man. Best day of my life. In high school, I had this friend named Larry. Larry was one of those rare lucky guys. It seemed like he never got caught doing anything, and never got his ass beat, no matter how badly he deserved it. One day, Larry, myself and another friend were walking back to his house after picking up a pound of weed. Larry has it in his backpack, not wrapped or concealed in any way, just tossed in there, in a plastic Ziploc. We come around a corner near a large brick building. and walked into the middle of a traffic stop to cop cars and lots of flashing lights. My first instinct is to just take off running, but not Larry. He just walks on like nothing is out of the ordinary. That's when we noticed the drug sniffing dog. The dog looks up at Larry and instantly starts doing the drug dog I smell weed happy dance. I'm a luckier brick. Larry, being the world's luckiest idiot, yells out "ooh," a puppy, and runs over to the dog and starts wrestling around with it in the grass. The dog is losing its malarkey. The cop pulls the dog off, even though it's barking and dancing and just generally being an excellent little dope puppy. Larry stands up. The cop scolds him for playing with a working dog, and we walked away. We get about a block away, and I point out to Larry that he just did the coolest thing I have ever seen someone do. What do you mean? You did not even flinch. Just started playing with the dog. Well yeah, he was adorable. Yeah, but you have a very large amount of weed in your backpack. Oh malarkey. Larry had completely forgotten the stash and was genuinely just playing with a dog. Luckiest bastard in the world. I was at Subway with my friend, and these two guys walk in, pick up the life-size cardboard cutout of Jard, and walk out. Nobody else in the place noticed. It's not really that no one noticed, I'd think. It's just that the employees figured it'd be too much trouble to actually do anything about it. I used to work at a pizza place, and one of the guys I worked with loved Subway Southwest sauce. He loved it so much. In fact, he walked into the Subway clothes to work, noticed no one was behind the counter, went into their dry storage, it was right by the front, and stole an entire box of the Southwest sauce. We kept it in our storage area and made pizzas out of it. They were delicious. I was at a gas station and some Lil Wayne looking dude kept talking on his Bluetooth. Every other word out of his mouth was duck. There was an elderly couple standing in the line next to ours. I was behind said gentleman of African descent. The old man just reached over and pressed the button on the dude's Bluetooth, effectively ending the call. The kid just glared at the old man, paid for his Newports, and left. I had a friend ask Ernie Shavers to punch him. For those who do not know who Ernie Shavers is, he's the hardest punching boxer who ever lived, as polled by the International Boxing Hall of Fame. I did not see it. My grandfather was working on a patent for what would become chlorinated tablets that you find in your pools. Lo and behold, one day at the lab there is a chemical explosion. 3 men were stuck in the room and the fire department, I assume NIFT, refused point to pull them out due to the toxic danger. The assumption was they were either dead or would not make it. My grandfather goes in and pulls the 3 of them out. I think one was dead and the other 2 died on the way to the hospital. They gave him some honorary award or some bull malarkey and a life expectancy of a few years due to the exposure to the chlorine. He went on to live to the age of 99. They do not make men like this anymore. I drove into a parking lot to buy car insurance from my insurance agent. Next door to the agency is a Domino's. After doing business with my agent, I come outside and find an 18-wheeler with the Domino's name and logo along the side of the trailer. It was parked behind my car and would not let me out. I was really hungry. I went inside Domino's and said, "Hey, your truck is blocking my car from getting out. I demand free breadsticks until the truck is moved." And it worked. I got some free breadsticks. High school. About 03 or 04. Kid named Louis was getting constantly harassed by a fella named Garrett. Louis, having had enough, one day hid from Garrett all day long, but kept his eyes peeled for him. When he found Garrett, he ended up sneaking around school, almost spying on Garrett, just waiting on something. Garrett eventually went to the bathroom during lunchtime. Louis followed him into the bathroom and found him at the urinal, mid-piss. Louis walks up behind him, unzips his pants, and starts urinating all over Garrett's back. Garrett freaks out, fumbles around at the urinal. Louis shoves him hard into the urinal and he falls to the floor in a puddle of urine. Louis was suspended for a week, but he was a winner in my book. Garrett never bothered him again. I was in gym class during my junior year of high school, and the teacher was having us climb over a wooden wall. One student stayed at the top and helped everyone up. When one particular girl was trying to climb up, he helped her up by reaching down around her butt and lifting her by the taint. She did not really seem to object, actually. Kid I went to boarding school with went into the dining hall with ranch dressing smeared across his mouth and in front of the dean. Faculty and all us fellow students screamed, "Look everybody, I got my grades raised." When I was 13 I saw a guy. In retrospect, he was probably only about 17. slap his girlfriend hard across the face while we were waiting at a bus stop outside my high school. I walked straight up to him, pushed him in the back so he turned around, and then hit him as hard as I could in the stomach, because that was all I could reach properly. Then he broke my nose. But the girl went to the hospital with me and I got my first kiss, albeit a friendly peck, but still. 13-year-old score. My friend and I had purchased some Henry Wienhead's root beer and were drinking it outside of our local 7-Eleven. We were both 16. After 3 minutes, a cop pulls up and asks us what we were drinking. We told him root beer. The cop asked us if we could drink them somewhere else because they look like beer bottles. My friend replies, well, we could put them in paper bags so no one can see what we're drinking. The cop, needless to say, was not amused. A 12-man crew rappel out of a Black Hawk helicopter in 45 miles per hour winds to cut a fire line on a hillside, with the flame front approaching at about 25 miles per hour, then standing on the opposite side of the line and waiting for the fire to run into it. It was the goddamn Ballsiest thing I have ever seen, and I have fought forest fires for 4 years now. Some friends and I were hanging around outside the pub waiting for our cab. This drunk girl none of us knew randomly started screaming at us, and when a 6-foot-plus guy tried to calm her down, she started smacking him and clawing at his face. Her friends pulled her off, but she really banged him up and broke his glasses. Knowing he would be arrested for hitting a girl back, he waited until her back was turned, whipped it out, and pissed up the back of her leg and dress. By the time she noticed what he was doing, we had all dashed into the cab and sped off. 3 AM some bikers came our house, drunk, banging on the door, demanding we send my sister out. Gonna call her Linda, not real name obviously. My dad was one of the smartest guys I ever knew. He knew my sister did not hang out with bikers, and wherever they got her name from, they did not really know her. So when they demanded we send Linda out, my dad stood up to those bikers, looked them right in the eye and said, "Who?" They left. In high school I had a buddy named Cam that got locked out of his apartment when we all went to chill there after class and did not have his key. So he climbed up 4 stories on the side of his building and got in through the back, which he hoped was unlocked. To sum it up, my friend is Spider-Man. A friend and I went to a frat party that another friend invited us to. We had a great time mingling and joking around. My drunk friend decided to take an empty keg. Later on I meet him at his car to drive us home, and he asked me if I would help him carry this keg to his car because he was too tired to carry it by himself. I tried to explain that he should just take it back because they have to get their deposit back, but he was too drunk to care. Just as I finished talking to him and decide that I'm not going to help him, some mob shows up with people saying they saw us take the keg. Outnumbered, we were forced back to the frat house. They stood us up in front of everyone and pointed out that we had stolen their empty keg. People booed and threw things at us. Our captors pulled us inside to talk to the president of the fraternity. Not being drunk myself, I tried to reason with these very upset and drunk frat bothers. It took a little bit of time, but I agreed that my friend would give them the $30 something in his wallet for their time and trouble and my amusement, and then we'd go on our way to never return again. There were people outside this house wanting to fight us, so I decided that we should go out back. The president of the fraternity did not want the cops to be called if a fight broke out, so he sent a couple of guys to escort us back to our car. We climb out the rear window and quietly head on our way up the road back to the college, where our car is parked. Unfortunately, we are spotted by a few guys that saw my friend take the empty keg. This one guy rips his shirt off to expose what can only be described as next month's cover of Flex magazine, and punches a mailbox so hard it breaks the 4x4 post it was mounted to. At this moment I thought our next stop would be the hospital. There was no way my slightly overweight, video game playing ass was going to run away from this guy. There was no way I could take a punch from a guy that can punch like that. The guy's in a full run at me right now. I do not know where the inspiration came from, but I decided to run full speed at him. When he got within range I jumped and planted both my feet in his chest. This caused me to go straight to the ground and caused him to go backwards and slide back first on the asphalt a good 15 feet away from me. He was coughing and complaining about how hard it was to breathe. Blood covered his back and he could not sit up. Everyone looked at me and one guy threw his hands up and said, "We do not want any trouble, buddy. Just walk away and we would not call the cops." Was in my college class when this prick started giving the professor attitude. It was a film and literature class and basically every 5 minutes the professor had to ask this guy to stop talking because he kept chatting with his girlfriend who sat next to him. This happened 3 times, then on the 4th time the guy talking let out a sigh and said, "You know what? This is like the 3rd time I've heard my name come out your mouth and I'm getting sick of it." At that point I told him to shut his mouth and stop being disrespectful. The second I said something, the another person spoke up, and so on until a chain reaction of GTFO began. He ended up dropping the class. He was stupid loudmouth malarkey that did not take college seriously. Welcome to the end of the video. Do not worry, there are many more. Come aboard for more adventures. Like and subscribe for more posts from the Reddit Rainforest. Thanks for watching.